letting everyone know socialism sucks. The Charlie Kirk Show.
Welcome back, everybody. Email us, as always, freedom@charliekirk.com. Let's play one of our moments here that we have from some of our viral videos. Let me see. I'm just kind of picking through here. How about this one? Do we have time for that one? Not really. Let's play Caught 311. How often are we afraid to tell the people we're trying to get saved what they need to be saved from? And that is the word, and my friend Barry, we talked about this forever. Your need of a savior increases the more you talk about sin. And sin can only exist because sin means off the target if you talk about the target. So you talk about the target, realize you're falling short. A younger generation knows they're already unhappy, they're depressed, they're anxious, they're alcohol addicted, they're drug addicted, they're lost. So they know all of that. You make sense of it, being like, you know why you're all those things? Because here's the target, and you're over here, and Jesus is the only way back to that. And they're like, wow. Be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Email us, as always, freedom@charliekirk.com, and subscribe to our podcast, patriotmobile.com/Charlie. I realize there are many choices when it comes to who you choose for your cell phone service, and there are new ones popping up all the time. Here's the truth. There's only one that boldly stands in the gap for every American that believes freedom is worth fighting for, and that is Patriot Mobile. For more than 12 years, Patriot Mobile has been on the front lines fighting for our God-given rights and freedoms, while also providing the exceptional nationwide cell phone service with access to all three major networks. Don't just take my word for it, as the hundreds of thousands of Americans who've made the switch and are now supporting causes they believe in. Go to patriotmobile.com/Charlie, call 972-PATRIOT, or go to patriotmobile.com/Charlie. Use promo code Charlie for a free month of service. That is patriotmobile.com/Charlie, patriotmobile.com/Charlie. Okay, Steve, we got to get to this really quick. We got 5 minutes here. Why don't you talk about economics and then also address the Israel issue, because both of which actually are components of how we reach the next generation and things they're talking about. Steve Deace.
100%. Number one, I think we have to abandon our presuppositions of the last generation. And I think we have to look at both economics and foreign policy non-dogmatically and accept the idea and the truth that institutionally the entire West is broken down. And remember this, Charlie. I think this is very important for your audience to remember. The Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath. And deploy that principle here, all right? We want a foreign policy that doesn't affirm our dogma, but actually affirms American greatness and sovereignty, okay? And if your dogma gets in the way with that, get a new dogma. Similarly, we need an economics that actually serves the people. The people are not widgets and units to serve an economic theory, all right? And so I think we have to exactly right. we have to put people first here in the presuppositions that we are making. Jesus died for people. Did not die for a systematic theology. I'm a big systematic theology guy, but there's nothing more important to Jesus than people. As far as we know, we're the only beings in the entire universe made in his likeness and image.
Completely agree.
All right, so the needs of people outweigh an ideological or dogmatic affirmation. Now, in another era, where the social compact of America was still intact and our institutions were not captured and weaponized against us, we might have a different viewpoint and say to people, hey, this is a good system, it's a good culture, you're the one that needs to conform to it. You're outside the mainstream here. But we're not in that era right now. All right, and so we're trying to determine what the mainstream is. And again, I think this is where it comes down to asking questions. When I first started in local radio, the biggest trouble I ever got into is Microsoft wanted to come into our state and get billions of dollars in corporate grift from the government. And I said, you know what, if we're going to do that, then I'm going to actually be in favor of project labor agreements for the unions. Because if we're just going to let Bill Gates come in here and pillage and plunder the taxpayer, then we ought to be actually paying real sustainable wages to the little guy out there doing the work of paving the roads when it's 97 degrees in Iowa in July and August, rather than telling him, hey, we're going to let you actually get outbid by an illegal alien. And man, the corporate donor class to the GOP in my state, when I was just a local host at the time, Charlie, lost its cotton-picking minds, because I wanted to hold them to the same standard they wanted to hold the quote-unquote thrifty working class. And I think one of this, as much as anything, is the secret of Donald Trump's success. The fact that he's actually not dogmatic about systems that no longer work and maybe haven't for longer than we wanted to admit, and actually bending them to the will of what helps the most people instead of affirms a think tank's white paper has made him a great threat to a lot of the established order, but has made him beloved by a lot of people left behind by that exact same order. And when it comes to foreign policy, I understand why people look at things like dispensationalism, and they grew up with their parents who knew more about how close the Jews were to retaking the Temple Mount than they knew what was going on at the school board. And they're like, what kind of theology is that? And I understand the instinctive rebellion against this, that somehow you're to put Israel ahead of your own country. And I don't understand why that's the case. And I see gay pride parades in Israel, and they're even more pro-abortion than we are. So why in the world do I have to make them kind of the fulcrum or the plumb line of my entire Christian experience or seeking of truth? I get all those questions, and I think we should ask them. And I was one of the first national shows that put people on that did not have premillennial, dispensational, eschatological views. A lot of my audience never heard of postmillennialism or amillennialism, frankly, Charlie, until I put people on the air to tell them what it was. So I'm fine having this debate, but we also need to understand the historical framework we're dealing with here, and that is Islam. And you do understand this, and you do highlight this because this is important to understand. Islam has, for 1,200 years, there was Islam, and there was no nation on earth called Israel. There was no, we were aligned with Israel, so we're attracting all of this honeypot from the world of Islam if we decoupled from Israel. There was no nation on the earth for 1,200 years while there was Islam. Islam declared war against Christianity all 1,200 of those years just the same. You have to understand, Islam doesn't care what your particular eschatological view of this particular Israeli government is or is not. All right, we're all just people of the book to them. It doesn't matter if you're Jew and how often you've been you've gone to synagogue, or whether you actually even know any of the law or not. Same thing with a Christian. Doesn't matter if you think the church has replaced Israel or that Israel's more important in America.
Steve,
Islam comes after us just the same.
So, Steve, I'm going to keep you for about 3 minutes so you can close your argument. So let's go over the break. 3 minutes. Stay right there.